The alarms scream first, then the lights. Red flashing emergency protocol. The submersible lurches, not a gentle drift but a violent shove. Something massive just passed within meters of the hull. The pressure sensors spike. The sonar screams. A contact, undefined, too large for the screen to render properly. And then impact. Not a collision, not a scrape. A deliberate, calculated strike. The hull reverberates like a struck bell. The pilot's hands freeze on the controls. The co-pilot stares at the sonar screen, watching the blip know the shadow retreat into the black. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that follows violence. The kind that says you've been marked. Because whatever just hit the DSV limiting factor at 35,850 feet below the surface of the Pacific Ocean wasn't hunting. It was investigating, testing, claiming territory. And you just entered its home. There is a place on Earth where human beings do not belong. A place where every law of surface biology breaks down, where pressure exceeds 16,000 pounds per square inch, where darkness is absolute, where the temperature hovers just above freezing. We call it the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the underworld. And in May 2019, something down there made contact with a submersible, not an accidental brush, not debris. Contact, deliberate, sustained, unexplained. The footage exists, the sonar logs exist, the hull damage exists. But the creature unknowns. Tonight, we reconstruct the Mariana Trench incident, the deepest recorded encounter between human technology and something we cannot identify, and the question that keeps deep-sea researchers awake. If that was a test, what happens when it decides we're prey? Stay until the end, because the evidence gets worse. Challenger Deep, the deepest point in the Mariana Trench, 36,037 feet below sea level, that's nearly 7 miles straight down, deeper than Everest is tall, a place only 5 manned vessels have ever reached. On May 1, 2019, explorer Victor Vescovo piloted the DSV limiting factor to the bottom. The mission: map the trench floor, document life at full ocean depth, collect samples. Standard protocol, routine dive, until it wasn't. The descent takes 4 hours. You pass through the sunlight zone in minutes, the twilight zone in an hour, then the midnight zone, then the abyss, and finally at 20,000 feet you enter the Hadal trenches. This is where biology stops making sense. At these depths, pressure is so extreme that most cellular structures should collapse, proteins should denature, membranes should rupture, and yet life exists, not just bacteria, not just simple organisms, predators active hunting. Snailfish with translucent bodies and antifreeze proteins in their blood, amphipods the size of rats scavenging on sunken whale carcasses, and something else, something the sonar detected but the cameras never captured. Something large. At 35,850 feet, just 200 feet above the trench floor, the sonar registered an anomaly. Not a rock formation, not a thermal vent, a biological return, moving, tracking parallel to the submersible's descent path. The pilot Victor Vescovo noted it in the mission log. Large object 50+ meters in length, maintaining distance of approximately 100 meters. No visual confirmation. 50 meters, that's 164 feet, longer than a blue whale, longer than any known deep-sea creature. The object tracked the submersible for 8 minutes, not drifting, not carried by current, actively maintaining position, shadowing. Then the sonar lost it. Not because it swam away, because it dove, deeper than the submersible, deeper than the sensors could track, into a trench within the trench, a sub-basin that drops another 400 feet. And that's when the mission parameters changed. Because when something that large deliberately hides from you, it's not fleeing, it's repositioning. The submersible reached the seafloor at 36,037 feet, the deepest point on Earth. The pilot began the survey, cameras rolling, lights on, sample arm extended. And then the alarms. Proximity warning, something approaching fast from below. That's impossible. The submersible is on the bottom, there is no below. The trench floor is solid rock, except it isn't, because the Mariana Trench isn't a smooth basin, it's fractured, ridges, canyons, caves. And something just came out of one. The sonar screen lit up, a massive return ascending rapidly, 200 meters, 150, 100. And then impact. The submersible lurched, the hull groaned. The pressure sensors spiked to 16,500 psi, emergency thrusters fired. The pilot pulled back on the ascent controls. For 3 seconds the submersible didn't move. Something was holding it, not grabbing, pressing, testing the hull integrity, applying force to see if it would crack. Then release. The object descended back into the trench. The sonar tracked it for another 30 seconds, then it vanished, not gradually, instantly, as if it passed beyond the sonar's range in a single moment. That's not how biology works. Nothing that large moves that fast at depth. The drag should be prohibitive, the energy cost should be impossible. Unless it's not moving through the water. Unless it's moving with it, using the trench's hydrothermal currents as camouflage, as propulsion, as cover. And that would require intelligence. The submersible surfaced 6 hours later. The crew was shaken but intact. The mission was declared successful. Official reports mentioned minor contact with unidentified object. Minors? But the hull told a different story. External cameras captured the impact site. A section of the pressure sphere, titanium alloy rated to withstand 16,000 psi showed deformation. Not a scratch, not a dent, deformation. The metal had been compressed inward by approximately 2 millimeters across a 30-centimeter area. Engineers analyzed the force required. The calculations were disturbing. To deform titanium alloy at that thickness, you need sustained pressure exceeding 20,000 psi applied to a specific point. That's not a collision, that's not a bump, that's deliberate concentrated force. Like a hand pressing against glass, testing if it will break. And there was something else, something the engineers found during the post-dive inspection. Residue, organic material, protein-based, embedded in the microscopic surface abrasions around the impact site. The sample was sent to the Scripps Institution of Oceanography for analysis. The results inconclusive. The proteins didn't match any known deep-sea species in the genetic database. The molecular structure suggested extreme pressure adaptation, proteins folded in ways that shouldn't be stable outside Hadal depths. And the sample contained bioluminescent compounds, photophores, light-producing cells. Whatever touched the limiting factor at 36,000 feet was bioluminescent, possibly using light as camouflage, communication, or lure. But there's no light at 36,000 feet. Nothing to illuminate, nothing to see. Unless you're using light to see things that don't belong. The limiting factor wasn't the first. In 1960, the bathyscaphe Trieste descended to the Challenger Deep. Pilot Don Walsh reported sonar contacts at depth, large, mobile objects tracking the descent, no visual confirmation. The Navy classified the logs. In 2012, James Cameron's deep-sea Challenger reached the trench floor. During ascent, the submersible experienced unexplained drag as if something was following matching speed. Cameron described it as resistance that shouldn't exist. In 2021, Chinese submersible Fenduge documented sonar anomalies at 10,000 meters. Large biological returns, coordinated movement patterns. The footage was never publicly released. 3 separate missions, 3 separate vessels, 3 separate decades. Same phenomenon. Large unidentified objects, tracking behavior, deliberate contact. And every single crew reported the same unsettling detail. The objects weren't surprised. They were expecting the submersibles, waiting for them. Like they'd done this before. Marine biologists have 3 explanations. None of them are comforting. Theory 1. Colossal squid reach 46 feet. Giant squid reach 43 feet. But sonar returns suggest something over 160 feet. That's not a squid, that's a serpent. And squid don't press against hulls. They grab, they strike. This was investigative behavior. Theory 2. Whales dive deep. Cuvier's beaked whales reach 10,000 feet, but no whale has ever been recorded below 12,000 feet. The pressure would collapse their lungs. Their bodies aren't built for it. And whales don't track submersibles, they avoid them. Theory 3. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable. Deep-sea biologist Dr. Alan Jamieson, who has led over 50 Hadal expeditions, stated in a 2020 interview, "We've explored less than 1% of the Hadal zone. We've filmed maybe 0.01%. The statistical likelihood of encountering an apex predator during any single dive is near zero, but the likelihood that they exist, near certainty." Translation: the deep ocean isn't empty, it's understudied. And apex predators in isolated ecosystems evolve in ways we don't predict. Gigantism, extreme specialization, behaviors we'd call intelligent if we saw them on land. The Mariana Trench is 1,580 miles long, up to 43 miles wide, depths exceeding 36,000 feet. We've mapped maybe 5% of it. The rest unknown. And in that unknown, something large, bioluminescent, and behaviorally complex is living. hunting, defending territory. And it just met us. In March 2024, the submersible Aurelia descended to Challenger Deep. Mission objective: collect sediment samples from the trench floor. At 35,000 feet, sonar detected multiple returns. Not one object, three, moving in coordinated formation flanking the submersible. The pilot aborted the dive. Ascent initiated immediately. The objects followed for 4,000 feet, then broke off. Post-mission analysis revealed the same protein residue on the hull, same molecular structure, same bioluminescent compounds. But this time there was more. Scratches, 3 parallel lines, each one 40 centimeters long, 2 evenly spaced to be random, 2 uniform to be accidental. Like claw marks. And the spacing matched a pattern seen in one other place: giant squid hunting scars on sperm whale skin. Except the Aurelia's hull is titanium, and those marks were deep. Whatever made them wasn't testing anymore. It was claiming.